Hello folks, welcome back to Light Source Engraving. I'm Patrick, your host as usual, and today I want to show you how to make some high-end hat patches using your diode hobby laser. Today I'm going to be using the Lasermatic 10, which is a 10-watt diode, to make some high-end hat patches that people would never suspect came from a diode. Here is the first example that I have for you. This patch is engraved with the diode and then adhered to the hat with Lone Star adhesives. So let me mention Lone Star for a minute. I'm going to be working with Josh from Lone Star Adhesives and making a series of tutorial videos on how to use his adhesive product. Those videos will be made in collaboration so that I'm not providing you with incorrect information. It won't be 100% accurate to your situation information because everybody has different equipment and techniques, but this will give you at least a good base to get started using this adhesive product. And this stuff is amazing. So let me give you a close-up of this hat patch and a close-up of the adhesive. You can see that engraving turned out great with the diode. And with this Lone Star adhesive, there is no way that you're going to pry this off of this hat without absolutely destroying your hat. It is on there and it is solid. It feels great. Let me show you another version of the hat patch. This is walnut and white Gemini Duets. Now for this one, I dropped it, but I pre-curved the patch on the hat press and then added a strip of Velcro to the back so that it would just adhere to any standard Velcro based hat. So there's an instant fancy hat patch on your Velcro. Another thing I want to show you with the diode laser, and this is a Duets patch with the Lone Star adhesive on the back. So you can peel this off and you see the adhesive, and that is normal for it to look a little bubbly. But this engraves so amazing on the diode laser that you can actually read the text. And this is a standard 3x2 hat patch. I'll just show you with this. It is just your standard size hat patch. Then I did a version in gold. See if I can get the light right. And here's a version in a blue marble. It engraves. If you don't get the full layer off, it'll engrave that gray color. And if you get the full blue layer off, you will end up with a nice gold color underneath. But that's it for the show and tell part. Let's just jump into Lightburn. I'll go over some settings and then roll in some footage of the patches being engraved and cut. And then I'll show you a brief overview of the process I used to adhere this patch to the hat. So let's just jump right into Lightburn. Alright, with the Lasermatic 10, it does have a camera. So I used the camera to take a image of the bed and have the Burn to Learn logo positioned. I have the Burn to Learn logo queued up, and what I want to do is see how much detail we can bring out with this circuit board pattern inside the brain by doing the negative. So that's what we're going to do first, is burn this logo and learn if the diode is able to achieve the amount of detail we need to see the circuits and even read the writing inside. That's really tiny. It will be impressive if we can read it. I don't expect to be able to read that, but we'll see what happens. So let me get this framed. Let me show you that we are using the diode laser. It looks like we are in good shape. So let's go back to Lightburn. Let me show you the settings I'm using. I am running 3 millimeters up out of focus, about 3 millimeters up. That's going to make our spot size a little bit bigger and distribute that energy over a larger area, and that helps keep that acrylic looking smooth without layer lines showing up. So I'm running this about 3 millimeters up out of focus. I'm also running it at a speed of 6,000, a power of 60% with air assist turned on, and a line interval of 0.0677. I don't know why I had it ended up at 677. I think just a line interval of 375, but somewhere close to there. 0.06, 0.065, 0.07 should get you in the ballpark. And we're doing all shapes at once. And then to cut this acrylic with this 10-watt diode, I'm running a speed of 200, power of 90. Now the reason I'm running it speed of 200, power of 90 is to cut through not only the acrylic but also the adhesive and the paper backing on the adhesive, the carrier sheet. So we want to make sure we cut through all of that. So I have to go slower with a higher speed. I am using let's see, zero kerf, which that was set incorrectly, but a zero kerf, and that is it for the cut setting. So now all I have to do is run this and see what happens. But just remember, 3 millimeters out of focus helps eliminate the layer lines. So at this point, let's just hit start and see how it does. Now, while this is finishing up, I do want to go over one thing. Whenever these patches come off the laser, I use some isopropyl alcohol and a microfiber. I spray the patch with the isopropyl alcohol and then wipe it off, and that cleans all the debris and leftover acrylic dust off of the patch and makes it look nice. So that's what I recommend, just some alcohol and a microfiber. All right, another quick tip. The graphite with the gray underneath acrylic. I'll show you a close-up of that. So it's gray underneath, graphite on top. The walnut green that I showed you that's in this patch. The black and silver, like you see running currently, and the gold with the black underneath. All use the same settings. Those are all fine. When you start getting into the color spectrum, reds, blues, greens, you're going to have to adjust your settings. For example, this blue, which I made this patch out of, it requires slowing down to roughly 2,000 millimeters per minute and increasing your power up to almost 100% just to make it through that blue layer. And if you want it to stay gray, then you don't have to run it again. But if you want to get down to the yellow, you're probably going to need 2 or 3 passes to get the yellow to start to show. And that's with the diode laser. With the CO2 laser, you're not going to have that issue. But it is doable. You're just going to have to play around with your settings. But the gold, the silver, the graphite, those all ran at the same settings with the same results. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is spray this with the alcohol. Wipe it down with the microfiber. And then I'm going to show you the results. And they are not good. And they're not good for one reason. You notice right here there's some heat damage. Well, the reason that it's not good is I forgot to turn on the air assist. So I'm going to run this again and show you what a proper one looks like. I'm going to leave the mistake in here so you can see this is what happens when you're not running air during your cut. Those light spots are damaged from the heat. So be sure to remember to run your air assist. And I'm going to run this again and then show you the proper one. Alright folks, we are coming to the end of patch number 2. Patch number 2 has air assist turned on, whereas patch number 1 I forgot to turn it on. And just from watching it through the plexiglass, patch number 2 looks much better and the cut is looking much better. Not having any type of flare-ups. And you're also able to see that most of that smoke's coming from beneath the acrylic and not from the top, so it is cutting all the way through. That would be cutting away through the acrylic, the adhesive, and the carrier sheet for the adhesive. So now let's take this thing off and clean it up. Alright, that is much better. I can tell already. So it's alcohol, microfiber, it definitely looks better. Don't see the heat damage there anywhere. It's kept some of the detail around the circuits of the brain. Overall it looks pretty good. I'm quite impressed that it still was able to manage to keep that detail. Now if I wasn't running this out of focus, I'm sure the detail for all the circuits would have remained, but we might start to see some lines pop up on the surface. And basically put on your reading glasses or get out your microscope and take a look. Right now I'm not seeing any lines. I could lower that focus down, try to rerun it and see if more of the silver remains behind. But it's just another experiment we have to do to see how far up out of focus we need to be to eliminate the lines, but how close to being in focus do we need to be to keep the detail. So that's the tips for engraving that acrylic with the diode. Now I'm going to roll in footage of me doing the actual press and just voice over that for you, and then that will be it. First thing I'm going to do is pre-press the actual patch itself so that it has more of a curve to it to fit the bill of the front of the hat. It's fairly wide, so I just wanted to have a little bit of curve to it at first, and I'm just using parchment paper to keep from scorching the acrylic. And it's not so hot that you can't touch it, so I just normally will give it a little bit extra curve just by using my hands until it starts to cool down. Then it kind of keeps shape. All right, and from here you have a couple options, more than a couple even. Some people will preheat the hat. They'll preheat the hat and the patch, use tape to hold everything in place. But the first thing I do is remove the sweatband out of the way, and then I use a magic eraser. Magic in more ways than one. The magic eraser will help fill in the gap that's caused at the seam on the front of the hat. Then when you press, you don't have the seam show up in your hat patch. And the microfibers tends to work kind of like a memory foam, where you press it down and it just fills out the voids very nicely. And as you can see here, by pre-curving that acrylic patch, it fits real nice onto the hat. So it's not, the edges aren't sticking up far in the air and aren't a long ways away from the surface. At this point, I did decide to use the heat transfer tape. So what I'm going to do is tape that hat patch in place just to keep it from moving around, and then press for roughly 15 seconds, maybe a little less, till the adhesive starts to adhere to the hat itself. Then we'll open the press back and remove the tape. And I do use parchment paper to keep from scorching the acrylic or leatherette or whatever else I'm using in the press. And I'm setting my temperature to 270 degrees. And at this point, I'm just using pressure, just setting the platen down on the surface and not doing a full press, just light pressure to heat up that adhesive enough that it sticks to the hat. All right, now let's open the press up and make sure that it's not going to move around, and then take the tape off of the patch. It's already starting to stick. But put the paper back in place and then start our press. And this is going to run, the press hasn't cooled down, but 270 at 30 seconds it was going to run. It's a little bit hotter than that, but I was fairly confident that it was going to work out anyway. So I was just counting to myself with just light pressure, and I think did about 15 seconds, and everything's starting to look good. It was still not quite adhered to the top, so just did a little adjustment and then another press, and we ended up looking good. Okay, at this point, finished up pressing for another 30 seconds, 15 seconds, remove the tape, and then 30 seconds. And this is the single platen press. And as you can see, that turned out really nice. Now, check out the magic eraser. See where that seam between the two halves of the is located, and how the rest of that magic eraser filled the void. So we ended up with a nice level surface. Well, that's it, everybody. That's all I have for today. I just want to say thank you to the patrons for making this video possible, allowing me to purchase the all the testing material, because that Gemini Duets is not cheap. But I hope this helps you guys out. Let me know in the comments if you think it does. I use the Gemini Duets. It's sold by JDS and other suppliers, so just do a search for that. And you can also use the Romark. Romark has a version as well that has 2 color engravings, so you can experiment with that. So either one of those 2 suppliers, they both make a good product in my opinion. I've used both, but I just happen to have a bunch of the duets on hand, as you saw earlier. I ordered it in for a project and then wanted to make the video, so I made sure I got several colors. And that's it. Please hit the like button and subscribe. I do appreciate you tuning in and watching. It means the world to me to see this channel start to grow, and I appreciate every one of you helping make that happen by subscribing and watching. And that's it for today. Let me know in the comments what you think, and go to the Laser Makers Run Facebook group and post a picture if you happen to make any patches using this method. But again, that's it for today. Thank you, and have a great day.